little bit of background about who we are as SecturaSOFT and where we come from. So we've been in the industry for about 8 years. We've been an official partner with Kinetic and with Epicor for the past couple of years, but we had a lot of customers that we were bringing on board before that. So our background is in the metal fabrication industry. The individual that wrote this platform wrote another platform called SigmaNest. He wrote that software about 36 years ago. Left, and really the idea was everybody was trying to use a SigmaNest CAD/CAM platform to create quotes and estimates, and that's just not what it's for. You know, that's their main focus is on engineering. Meanwhile, everybody was going out to their CAD/CAM software, SigmaNest or whatever it may be, ProNest, to do some nesting, get some run times, and then push that data back into something like an Excel spreadsheet that was disorganized. Only one individual, usually one individual, kind of created the Excel spreadsheet. A lot of tribal knowledge that goes into that. They'll take all that data and push it back into their ERP. So I'll kind of tell you the differences about us as we go along, but really we saw there was this problem that it was taking a long time to turn around quotes and a lot of tribal knowledge that goes into that. So we decided to kick it off and start SecturaSOFT. So like I said, we do have our main focus is around the steel fabrication and steel service centers. So a lot of people ask me, you know, who our main focus is. It's about 50-50, whether it's a steel service center or a fabricator. And what we see is more steel service centers are getting more into fabrication, so they need tools to help them along the way. The more complex fabricators, the more tribal knowledge, right? So the more that you get into welding, powder coat, painting, things like that, the more I always say that you have a guy. You know, the guy sitting in the corner, and you go to that guy, and he tells you how long something takes. And when you ask him, how does he know that? It's because he's been doing it for 20 some odd years, and he can tell you how long something takes. And our goal is to really go through and democratize the quoting so that anybody can create a simple quote. We do have a CAD/CAM portion to us, so we do have nesting. We do 2D, so we do linear nesting. That could be something like a tube laser or a saw or a beam line or something like that, or a Python. And then we also have flat nesting as well. The flat nesting, we could do multi-part nesting or single-part nesting. We're going to kind of show you through a demonstration of that. But the goal of the nesting platform is not to run your machine or produce G-code or anything like that. But the idea of it is that you can create a quote or an estimate and figure out how much material and wasted material that you should allocate to that job. We also have things like best sheet analysis and coil nesting as well that you can run through to analyze different jobs. But it's all around quoting and estimating. So we are not here to replace SigmaNest, your ProNest, your Tops, whatever it may be that you're running on the shop floor. It's quote by quote nesting. Hopefully you'll win the job, and then you'll mix your nest out on the shop floor and run that. But we do have a CAD/CAM portion of it, and then we have an integration to Kinetic. And I'll touch on that a little bit more as we go through here. So the value proposition and the reason that we exist. So I always say there's 3 reasons that we exist. First of all, it's to win more business. And that was really, when we first kind of came online, that was really the premise that we launched on. The idea is the first one back with the quote usually wins the job. And that's what we're seeing more and more and more, especially with the volatility of the market and the material prices jumping. It's usually, you know, 24, I mean, at the peak in 2021, I was seeing quotes that were good enough, you know, good for 6 hours because material prices were so volatile and jumping all over. So the main premise was speed wins. And so a lot of times people try to figure out what is the return on investment when it comes to winning business. And I usually shoot for a 20% higher win rate. Most of our customers have a win rate of 25 to 35%. So let's say 30%. That's where they know that they're making money and that they know the jobs that they're doing are good and they're not priced too high. But usually what we try to shoot for is about a 20% increase of that win rate. So our goal is to get you guys up to 36%. So I don't know everybody's business in here, but if you're looking at what's the return on investment of a tool like this, look at what 6% of your overall profitability is inside of your organization. You can kind of get a rough estimate of what the return on investment for just winning more jobs would be. The other thing is obviously democratization of quoting, kind of mentioned that, but the goal there is that we can get away from one individual that has the 20, 30 years experience that can tell you how long things take to create a quote. Now you can train people, I mean, we've trained people in an hour on the platform after it's set up. And before that it would be you have to usually run out on the laser for a couple years, and you have to run on the press brake, and you have to be, you start usually as a welder. Or we also see a lot of times even the owners or operations managers or really individuals that have been in the industry, or that run these companies, are the ones that are doing the quoting and estimating, and really there's a lot better things that they could be doing with their time, which is either selling or optimizing the shop floor or whatever it may be. So you're taking your most talented individuals out of the shop floor, sitting them behind an Excel spreadsheet, asking them usually to make the Excel spreadsheet, and then having them create times. And then meanwhile, you're also having to go out to programming, get them to estimate your run times and nest and things like that. I'll show you a little bit more about that. And then the last thing is obviously the integration into the ERP. So a lot of times, again, what we see is somebody will get a quotation, go into their Excel spreadsheet, go out to their CAD/CAM nesting, type all that back in, they win the business, and now they have to go back into Epicor and then hand type all the information that they just did inside of a quote. So it's usually that same individual that's doing that, or they hand it off to an order entry clerk and they have to go in and put all that data in. So what we do is when you win a job, we'll automatically push it over into Kinetic. So what does that look like? So the way that I always tell customers to think about our product is Epicor is your operating system, right? So it's your iOS, it's your Android operating system, and what we are is we're an application that sits on your operating system, but we're specifically designed for quoting and estimating for fabricators. So what we do is we pull in your customers, your contacts, your products, and your costs, and we keep those in line. It's near real time, so we're constantly checking, are there material prices, material changes, so we can take a look at that. And what that gives you the ability to do is rev out quotes and update quotes in a couple of seconds, or old jobs, or create what we call price lists, and keep up to date on all of your products that you have inside of Epicor, along with stock and things like that as well. When you win the job, then we push it over into Epicor with the bill of material and the method of manufacturing. We push it over as a quote, and the reason we do that is a lot of times when you're estimating, you may have 10 lasers on the shop floor. They may be the same, and you may quote for one. A lot of times, I go into shops all the time that they're quoting off of an old CO2 laser, and I go out on the shop floor and they all have fiber lasers. So you can quote off of anything you'd like to. And then when we hand it off into Epicor, now we could push it one-to-one if you want us to push to every single work order center inside of Epicor, or every laser break. But a lot of times, general estimation, they want to just go in and select, I want to run this on my 10 kilowatt fiber laser, estimate it, push it over into Epicor as a quote. Before that quote is released out to the shop floor, then you can go in and update it and tell it which one that you want to go through. Once you can see the schedule and you can see capacity management and things like that. In case a machine's down or something like that, you need to make some adjustments for it. But the cool thing is you don't have to do any order entry. So you do the quotation, you win the job, it pushes right over to Epicor. You don't have to do any manual importing of material or anything like that. It can pull in. And you can also, we get a lot of questions around material pricing and things like that. We can do average material pricing or first in, last out, however you want to do that, and however you have it spec'd out inside of Epicor, we can pull from those material cost tables. And we're going to show that a little bit here in just a second. So you'll get a better eye on that. So super simple, and again, I'll let Mike kind of go through this, but it's really easy. Again, I told you guys you can teach people how to use our system in a half hour if you want to. So we call it the 1, 2, 3s of importing geometry. I don't know if I like that too much anymore, because you can create a quote inside of our system off of anything from a napkin drawing to a PDF to a SolidWorks model to a step file, whatever you might get. But what you do is you import the geometry. Again, you can also use napkin drawings. Import the geometry. With a couple of clicks of a button, you can clean up that geometry, allocate the certain materials, apply your operations, and then really it creates the quote. So we have standards that we'll put in place, and we have rule sets that we'll put in place based on your all's organization to allocate things like run times. So you'll see, what's my per sheet load time? What's my programming time? Is this part so large that I need 2 operators at my press break? We have a rule-based system that it'll apply to those operations. That way, again, trying to pull back that tribal knowledge and democratize quoting so that everybody can get the same quote every time. Meanwhile, we can remain accurate based on your all's shop there. And again, Mike will kind of dive into that a little bit. So I just wanted to throw this in here just because a lot of customers ask us, what type of operations do we cover? This is by no means the the entire list. I mean, some of our customers have, you know, hundreds of operations, but we can do anything from lasers. I just did a demo earlier for a turret where we auto tooled up the part if anybody does any kind of turrets, but we can tool up the part automatically. Tube lasers, if you guys have a tube laser, you know how difficult it is to create quotes for it. You usually have to go out and program it in usually antiquated software that takes a long time. Combo, so kinetic machines and things like that, and then obviously saws. And then we can nest and figure out material utilization for all of those. Again, that's not our complete primary operation list, but what we call primary operations are an operation that you're creating the part from raw stock material. So that's going to be laser punch, plasma, saws, these, and then more. And then secondary operations. All of these have what we call industry standard calculators out of the box. So we have a really nice powder coating calculator. We have a really good machining calculator, milling, really good grinding calculator. So you can kind of use our standard, but nobody shot a standard, and usually people want to make sure that we can hit their, you know, what they've been doing for a while. So we will also tweak and change our standard if we need to, based on your shop. Again, a good example of that is a lot of times we'll go in and somebody might have an auto sheet loader. So we'll take into account the number of sheets, and then we'll look at the auto sheet loader and figure out how long that takes them, or they might have a rule. If it's over a certain size of material, they may have to go in and get a forklift to pull that in, or they may have to go in and get a crane and crane that in, depending on how thick a material you guys are working with. Again, that's kind of the extras that we'll put into the calculators to make sure that we're accurate for you all. We do have a platform as well. We probably won't touch on it too much, but it's called Vendor Connect. If you're a steel service center, it gives you the ability that you can allow your customers to nest to figure out how much material is required from you all. If you outsource, it gives you the ability to send RFQs and RFPs automatically over to your vendors, and they can respond and give you a quote using the geometry. One of the cool things there is if you have a drawing and you don't want to allow your vendor to have full access to the drawing, a lot of times we see it where somebody will send a PDF or a scanned image that's all marked up over. You can actually hide that geometry behind a firewall, but they can still leverage it. So they can say, okay, I'm going to laser cut this, and we have the number of holes, we have external contours, internal contours, things like that can be applied, but they can't actually physically download that geometry. They can't get to the geometry. So it gives you guys a lot of security by being able to deliver part files or CAD files to customers without them having access to, obviously, the customer name, but then also the file itself. Just wanted to touch on here, I don't think we need to go into this too deep, but we've had a lot of questions recently, especially with within the Epicor clients of international customers. So we do have language packs, and we have currency packs and things like that. So we can support customers, whether they're international customers or multi-site. So we have customers, our largest customer has about 350 locations. So we can support warehouses, locations, things like that. So we can support international customers and then also multi-site, multi-location customers as well.